Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Mokwariola. In a continent where elections are expected to hold in more than 17 countries in the course of 2017, democratic process is presently an August visitor in the land of the thousand rolling hills that chose to rise from the depths of conflict to the heights of development in less than 2 decades. August the 4th will go down in history as the day Rwanda stood still to elect a president in what is deemed as a one-horse race between an incumbent leader virtually up against himself, with 2 other contenders making up the numbers. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on democratic process in Rwanda as people elect a president? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC Connect. We take a report in Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Rwandan voters trooped to the polling stations this morning to elect the new president or retain the current President Paul Kagame. The over 7 million voters were casting their vote to choose between Dr. Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda, former journalist and writer Philippe Maimana, and incumbent President Paul Kagame of the ruling Patriotic Front. Now, President Kagame cast his vote this morning at 11 a.m. Rwandan time here in Kigali, and for the very first time the president did not speak to either international or local media, something he's done in the past. We don't know why. But also opposition candidate Dr. Frank Habineza, while casting his vote earlier on at 9 a.m., he spoke to journalists and said that he is confident that he will be able to at least get 70% of the majority votes.
Tomorrow I'll be president of Rwanda. So actually tonight, there's no losing. We are going to win and win very big, yes.
President Kagame is expected to win by a landslide. He has been in power for 17 years after winning the 2003 and 2010 polls with 93% and 95%. He is seeking another 7-year term following a constitutional referendum which waived a previous 2-term limit. Speaking at his last rally in Gasabo district in the suburbs of the capital Kigali, Kagame emphasized the need for Rwandans to build their own democracy amidst the Western critics.
ngo Kigali umurwa mukuru w'u Rwanda ndetse no hirya mu Rwanda mu byaro hehe ngo hari isuku rero ngo iyo suku ngo ntabwo ari demokarasi ngo ni dictatorship ariko icyo bivuze naza gasuzugura basuzugura abanyafurika basuzugura u Rwanda.
Since the last poll in 2010, the number of new voters has increased by 1.7 million, with women making up the majority of registered voters at 54%. The voting process, which began at 9 a.m. Rwandan time, closed at exactly 3 p.m. after 3 weeks of campaigns. Now, one unique factor about this particular election is the fact that it is the post-genocide election, where children born during and immediately after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi will be voting for the very first time. Now, the voters increased this year by at least 1.7 million, most of whom are actually young people. Now, the National Electoral Commission has been encouraging and emphasizing the fact that Rwandans should be done voting by 3 p.m. so that they can have 70% of the results announced at least by 10 p.m. Rwandan time. And as you can see in the background, this is one of the busiest polling stations in Kigali. There are less than 20 people remaining on the line. Maggie Mutesi, Kigali.
Eligible voters in Rwanda took positions behind long queues today to cast their ballots in the presidential election that incumbent President Paul Kagame is tipped to win by a landslide after 17 years in power, with the possibility of staying another 17 years. Now, more than 6.5 million registered voters were expected to take part in the third post-genocide election, a number that has increased by almost 2 million since the last poll in 2010. Joining me in the studio on Africa Today, I have Nelson Ekujumi, political analyst here in Nigeria. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And on Skype, I have Maggie Mutesi, TVC News correspondent, reporting from us from Rwanda. Good to have you with Mutesi. Well, let's begin with you, Mutesi. What can you tell us about the updates on the election? All right, it seems we are yet to establish contact with our correspondent. As soon as we get her online, we'll have updates on the outcome of the polls in Rwanda. Well, let's begin with you now, Nelson. You just heard Habineza being optimistic that, he might come out tops. But the election has been described as a foregone conclusion, even before the elections began. So Kagame is already tipped to win this election, come what may. But is there a chance that the opposition might just, spring a surprise?
Well, thank you very much. I was as surprised as you are by the pronouncement from, the opposition candidates of the Green Democratic Party of Rwanda. And I don't know where he gets, where he derives his optimism from, because, based on available statistics and reality on ground, Kagame is expected, to have a landslide victory. You recollect that in the past 2 elections, Kagame had won by over 90%, about 93, 95, on both occasions. So this election, even before now, Kagame himself in July said the election was a foregone conclusion. And all indices point to the fact that Kagame is going to, ride, there's going to be a tsunami, like as usual, that Kagame is going to be returned into office. So where Habineza got his optimism from, I don't know.
All right, let's leave him to have his optimism, but let's quickly come back to our correspondents from Rwanda now to give us updates on the outcome of the elections in Rwanda. Now, good to have you with us, Mutesi. So what can you tell us in terms of updates on the outcome?
We haven't yet received anything at the moment, but we've got some updates, especially from the diaspora, especially our neighbors here, where President Kagame is leading by 9,554 votes, compared to his opponents who have 61 votes from Habineza and 28 from Myanmar. That's the only update we have at the moment. We'll be having the first announcement in the next 30 minutes. But everyone is anticipating or is thinking that it's going to be above 95, looking at the history of the recent polls in 2003, 2010, and even the referendum. He's been winning in 90s and 90s. So it's expected maybe this time around it will even be 98%.
So how long will it take for the conclusions to be collated?
The counting starts now. The Electoral Commission says that by 10 p.m. we should at least have 70% of the results. Probably by tomorrow we will have the final results.
All right, let me hold your thoughts for there. It seems we're having a bit of a challenge with your audio, but let me come back to you now, Nelson. The opposing candidates, we're talking about Habineza and Mwayu Pina, yeah. Well, these two candidates, there seems to be a little bit of reports from the two that there has been some level of intimidation, suppression from the ruling party even before the elections began proper. So now that these opposition, they have tested their popularity at the polls, what would you say about their ability now to will I say, change the mind or change the perception that most ordinary Rwandans believe that Kagame is the only person that can rule them, is the only person that can make life better for them?
Well, the reality on ground today is that Kagame has been in power for the past 17 years. And, Rwanda has been the better for it. After the genocide in 1994, you will recollect that, it has been, Rwanda under Kagame has become the beautiful bride of the Western world, even though we have this issue of repression and, is exhibiting tactics of dictatorship. But be that as it may, these other two candidates or whoever, or other candidates that may emerge in future have, have a huge, or I should say, a Herculean task on their hands, convincing Rwandans that, they can do better than Kagame when they get into office. I think we should leave it to time. Maybe as time goes on, if Kagame falters, in delivering on his electoral promises and changing the lives of Rwandans for good, they might have to look, for succor elsewhere through other parties. And some of these candidates, or even new ones, could emerge on the scene.
But is there a possibility here? Because the people are already, coming from a traumatic past where lots of people were killed for hatred, for reasons, we cannot really explain now. But Are the people ready to, let go of Kagame? Or is Kagame even ready to even let go of the project he's calling Rwanda? Because he is more like the father of the country that was coming from a dark past. Do you think the people are ready to change that?
It's a two-horse race. And don't forget, we always make this allusion to people. You recollect when Jesus was, let me go biblical now, when Jesus was entering Jerusalem, people shouted, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest, And when Jesus was, taken before Pontius Pilate, the people were themselves the one who said, crucify him. Even when Pilate was asking, what has he done? I have found nothing against him. So what it tells you is that it's a two-way thing. It is between Kagame and the people. Along the line, if the people become fed up with Kagame, don't forget, Kagame has said after this 2017 to 2024 that he will step down. But we all know the antecedents of African rulers. When the time comes, they will change the music. So we expect that within now and the next 7 years, Kagame's performance in office will determine whether the people will be ready to tolerate him any further if he makes himself available to contest for office, or whether the people will submit their fate, to destiny that, look, we are destined to be ruled by Kagame until, the kingdom comes. All
right, let's hold your thoughts for now. Let's go on a quick break. You're watching Africa Today, and we've been looking at the democratic process in Rwanda as the people elect a president. We have more discussions in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Rwanda, under the watch of Paul Kagame, has arguably recorded significant success in economic growth, infrastructure development and stability since the end of the civil war in 1994. While Kagame has won global accolades for presiding over a rapid economic recovery since the 1994 genocide, some point to the absence of a level playing field for the opposition, and simply holding an election isn't enough. Well, Nelson, this matter is, pointed to the fact that there was a referendum held in 2015, yeah. And it gave Kagame the opportunity to contest
for the third time,
and possibility for another 2 terms.
Yeah, of a 5-year tenure.
That's 5-year tenure. Yeah, that's 2 terms, 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
But the opposition, before we discuss the matter of the opposition, they're still laying claims. They've been laying claims of suppression and all that. Now that the opposition in this case, because we've had reports where some opposition candidates were, laid back, were not allowed to contest.
Were disqualified.
Yes, disqualified for one reason or the other, allowing Kagame to run the race, unchallenged. Yeah. Now, with the way the opposition is in Rwanda and Kagame taking forth as a leader in the country, what is the possibility that the opposition might have a voice to say, okay, we want to change this style of leadership and go into a democratic style? What is the possibility here? Well,
the possibility is very, very high. It depends on, on the resolve of the opposition as well as the people of, Rwanda. If the opposition believes very much in the project of, equal opportunity for all Rwandans when they are contesting the election, and as well as a freedom of expression as guaranteed under the United Nations Declaration, of which I suppose Rwanda is a signatory. It means that, if they continue on these agitations, at the end of the day, they might come out, victorious. But if they succumb to the intimidation that they have alleged now, and, withdraw into their shell, the Rwanda people will be the worst for it. But what we can only do as Africans, as members of the human community, is to continuously beam our searchlight on Rwanda to ensure that the level playing field that is required in a democracy, is present in Rwanda. And where we see that lacking, we don't have to wait until the people of Rwanda cry out. We ourselves who are watching from afar can also, raise alarm that, this is not how democracy is practiced. That will, also go a long way in encouraging and motivating the opposition to know that in this battle, they are not alone, that members of the human community are also interested in their plight.
All right, we now have Maggie Mutesi, our TVC News correspondent, back on phone for more updates in Rwanda. Now, Mutesi, give us a bit of a demographics on the voters that took part in the election. Were they mainly the youth or the elderly? Give us a demographics here.
You know, like I said in the report, Rwanda is in an exciting time. One is because this is a post-genocide election. The young people, those who were born during 1993 after the genocide, have got a chance to vote for the very first time. Now we see that it's going to increase its diplomatic ties from different countries. Of course, in the northern hemisphere, we've had about 4,500 voters. Many Rwandans are now voting. We have more 1.7 million new voters. But looking at the statistics back and now, it's double in the voters before and now. But also, most of the people this time around are the young people, and 66% of the voters as well are women. So we have majority young people and women.
And from the voters you spoke with, were they able to tell you the reasons why they chose who they chose? For instance, I understand, you know, Kagame is likely to win. If at all they chose Kagame, what were the reasons given?
Many people have been giving reasons, of course, for President Kagame. And, you know, he's looked at as that one person who has got stability, looking back at the countries that passed, you know, and then looking at Rwanda, the past 50 years, there's been a lot of economic transformation, there's a lot of development. Many people have been elevated from poverty. You know, we have things like mutual differences, health insurance. Many people are super excited about it. So they have reasons like this. And they're saying we want to see a Rwanda that does not just stop at this. We want to see a Rwanda that achieves more. We want to see a Rwanda that is a role model, a Rwanda that even goes bigger. Because if we can achieve this in just 10 years, then there's so much we can achieve in the next 7 years. So one of the things we're looking at is stability, but also economic transformation is another aspect everyone is touching on.
So what is the general feel from the for other political watchers? What are they saying about this election that has Kagame and, well, only two opponents in this election?
The observers, what they're saying,
yes,
or the opposition?
Political observers, what are they saying about the elections that has Kagame likely to win and only two challenges in this election?
You know, the observers, of course, have their own, usually their own opinions, but many of them have been looking at it as a landslide. They have been projecting that he'll actually win by 98%, probably even much more, because of the party. The RPF, which is Kagame's political party, is very, very popular back home. It's loved by the people because of their achievements and also the things that the president has been able to do while in office. And for the opposition people, of course, are coming out to ask, what more are you giving us, or what difference are you giving us from what the RPF has been able to do? So even the observers, the party is more popular. In many cases, I would say that there is not too much opposition now.
Quite a concern there in Rwanda. I would like to thank you very much, Maggie Mutesi, for the little you're able to give to us this time. We appreciate it, even though it was a bit of a hard task trying to hear you clearly, but we appreciate the much you've given us on Africa Today. So now let's continue the show with you now, Nelson. What do you foresee may be the likely dangers of Kagame's leadership, if at all he continues until 2034?
I think that will not be good enough for the stability of the process, because you expect Kagame by now to have, open up the political space. I mean, his administration, open up the political space for, will be, successive successors to start emerging, for people to start vying for political office, just like he has had the opportunity. But one thing we cannot take away from Kagame is that we must give kudos to Kagame for ensuring stability
and peace
in the country after a genocide that is less than, maybe 2 decades ago. So we must give it to him, for what he has done, for the giant strides he has made in Rwanda. And, you know, the observers, the international community has also pointed to the advancement that they have made in, you know, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructural development. And also, Kagame has been an ardent promoter of women's rights. And that's why a lot of the MPs in Rwanda are women. So be that as it may, I don't think Kagame will be doing justice to the people of Rwanda if they see him, in quotes, as the savior, because Kagame is just a human being. At a point in time, Kagame will depart, you know, this life. So it is important for Kagame as a leader to ensure that he puts up a robust system that will allow persons with leadership qualities to emerge and, you know, start, you know, advocating, start, you know, engaging the system, you know, so that, you know, the Rwanda society will be the better for it.
And possibly, to also add to what you just said, possibly he could, you know, groom a successor.
Definitely, there's nothing too bad in that if he grooms a successor that also imbibes some of those qualities, some of those positive qualities that he has exhibited, you know, in holding the country together until now.
And if I were to look at this from another point of view, some would say that perhaps it is the African style. Even though Kagame came in to, well, help bring an end to the genocide in 1994, perhaps it is the African style that has been where African leaders are known to, well, stay in power for long, not minding how long it takes and not accepting to apply the principle of democracy. So if the people will say we're not ready for democracy, we are attuned to this African style of leadership, are we to say, well, let's change the way things are run?
Well, I don't think the people are attuned to that style, because one thing you know very well is that the human being has been, you know, destined or has been endowed with the power to determine his destiny, to the power to make choices. But it is not, it is an undeniable fact also that man by nature is selfish, is greedy. So it behoves on the people themselves to assert their natural rights, you know, to express themselves. Even the natural rights, is, you know, enshrined in the Constitution and given legal backing. So it behoves on the people themselves to realize that, look, if we leave it the way the human being is programmed, one man will just believe he's the all-in-all. Without him, the whole country will, you know, go up in flames. So it behoves on the people themselves, you know, to start reasserting themselves and, you know, breaking the shackles, you know, of this oppression. And that is why we must encourage the people themselves to be courageous enough and not, you know, to succumb to intimidation of state power. Because a lot of advancement we have made, you know, in the human community has been because of people who refuse to allow themselves to be subjugated.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I share your position as well. But on that point, let's thank you very much, Nelson Akujimi, political analyst, for all you've said on the program.
Thank you very much.
Elections come and go in most parts of Africa. It is back to status quo for citizens, with leaders who seem to have an expertise in failing on promises and falling short of expectations. Rwanda seems to have built a reputation for itself as an exception to expectations, but also points to the need for a brand of politics in Africa that is fully democratic, truly competitive, and fairly inclusive. And that is our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation as usual on Twitter at TVC Connect. And also follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. Until the next one again, I am Esther Mokwariola. And always remember, change starts with you.